Hello, guys, and I'm here to talk about Ripple. Uh, will Ripple replace Swift? And I'm going to give you my take on it, on what I think is gonna happen in the future with Ripple, with XRP. And some of you might not like to hear what I got to say. Some of you might like to hear what I got to say. But anyway, let's get right into it. Let's open the charts here and take a look at this article. Will Ripple replace Swift? An expert's take. Now, I'll listen to what the experts got to say, but I got my own opinions on this. It says, in the 21st century will go down as the innovative century characterized by the emergence of new disruptive technologies. Those disruptive technologies, in my mind, are cryptocurrencies. They're going to be tremendously disruptive. It says, yet, as the technology changed lives, a standout in the last 4 decades has been the emergence of cross-border and international money transfer across different jurisdictions with varying regulations. For you easily to wrap your head around it, the remittance market is currently estimated at $55 trillion a year of money remittance. Money moving around the world by these companies like Western Union and like MoneyGram and companies like that, right? It says from that humongous amount, they take a cut of $31 billion for nothing. They're getting $31 billion for nothing. All they're doing is moving your money. 31, soak that in for a minute, folks, which is huge. And what is even paining is that whole process takes about 3 to 4 days. So you want to send your money off to Afghanistan or send your money off to Sri Lanka or Zimbabwe or I don't know, Australia or New Zealand or Antarctica. It's going to take you 3 or 4 days. It says, ironically, despite the obvious gap, there is no immediate solution that could allow for same-day or even instantaneous settlements of funds. However, this is not going to last. In 2004, Ryan Fugger designed the Ripple project. His intention was to create a decentralized monetary system that could effectively empower people and communities to create their own money. This was practically before the launch of Bitcoin in 2009. 5 years later, Ripple, a remittance company based in San Francisco, was founded by Chris Larsen and Jed McCaleb. This company has ambitious plans. It plans to revolutionize money transfers by reducing the transfer time from a few days to a few seconds. A standout, though, is that the company actually has a longer and deeper history. Developments didn't stop there. In 2011, Jeb McCaleb began developing a digital exchange system in which transactions were verified through a consensus among network members. And later, Jeb McCaleb invited Chris Larsen. The two sought to address Ryan Fugger with their concept of digital currency. However, a couple months later, Ryan Fugger bailed out, leaving Jeb McCaleb and Chris Larsen to set up OpenCoin. Since then, the progress made by Ripple has been nothing short of explosive. Last year, for example, the Ripple team developed 3 products, XCurrent, XRapid, and XVIA. The XCurrent product is currently being used by more than 100 companies around the world. Okay, so we see this covers banks sending money to one another. This can cover people remittance money, people sending money to their loved ones, to their relatives, and so on, which is a $55 trillion a year business with $31 billion in profits to be made. So people are eyeing Ripple, and they're buying in, and they're hoping to make that Ripple's going to go up to these huge amounts because you need Ripple, from what I understand, to send money across the network, across the Ripple network. And so you need Ripples. Anyway, what do I think is going to happen in the future to Ripple? Well, I'll explain right now, and I'll get into the nitty-gritty of what I think is going to happen. We're going to go through a period where the fiat currencies around the world have a huge problem. The problem being is is people are going to lose confidence in them. Everyone's going to lose confidence in them because all the fiat currencies are going to start to inflate. Right now, the fiat currencies are deflating ever so slightly, and it's because of what the Fed's doing. But the Fed's going to have to change monetary policy at a certain point. I'll get down to the nitty-gritty of this, and it might take me about 2 or 3 minutes to explain. When the fiat monetary system was originally set up, it was set up in a way so that it needed exponential growth in the world economy. So factories kept moving to new countries, they kept building, and they kept making new things and new projects, and they kept loaning out money to fund these projects and stuff around the world. And this created what's called a credit expansion. Basically, money being borrowed out, and this is how this system is designed to operate. It's designed to operate with GDP growth. GDP growth in all of the countries of the world. And if GDP goes negative and the world starts to shrink back, the system is created in a way where they do not create the money that's needed to pay back the accruing debt on the credit expansion. Okay? So they expand the credit, and it's fine as long as the credit continues to expand forever. Then the system does not contract upon itself. But if you get a credit contraction, which is deflationary, in other words, the bubble is shrinking, the air is coming out of the bubble, okay? If you get that sort of a situation, then the system starts to implode upon itself. And this is what happened in 2008. The system started to implode upon itself. Liquidity starts to dry up in those circumstances. And the banking system has to do something fast because this is a self-perpetuating cycle. In other words, it feeds itself. Once this gets started, once you start to get deflation, deflation will start feeding itself. And it'll get worse and worse unless somebody steps in and does something. In this case, deflation is like a fire. Picture a fire in your mind, okay? And how they put the fire out is with water. Now, picture the water. The deflation is the fire, and the water is money that the Fed can make and the other central banks can make endless amounts of money. They have a money creation tool that is absolutely endless. The United States can never go bankrupt as long as the borrower of last resort is in place to borrow that money out there. Now, Ben Bernanke, he said it himself. He said, if deflation rears its ugly head, we will crush it. He said, if we have to, he said, we'll fly over with helicopters and we'll dump $100 bills out the window. Of course, that would end the deflation, right? But the problem with that is when you end the deflation, you ruin people's confidence in the currency. Because when you rain down money from heaven, then all of a sudden the people, somehow it doesn't clue into them that they can create as much money as there are leaves on the trees. Somehow it just doesn't clue into people. And they'll hoard money. Right now they're hoarding money. They're quite literally, rich people right now are scared. They're pulling their money out of the stock market, pulling their money out of equities, pulling their money out of gold, silver, everything. They're selling everything, and they're hoarding money. Somehow it just doesn't clue in that the central banks can make as much money as there is leaves on the trees. So they're sitting there and hoarding all this money. If the central banks change policy, all of a sudden that money that they've just hoarded is going to lose value tremendously. And all of these things that they sold, like their gold, their silver, their equities, everything else, will go up. Well, if the central bank does that, then the confidence is lost in the fiat currencies. Now, here's where this gets into ripple. Right now, the bubble's bursting in the system. And the Federal Reserve is holding tight. They're watching it burst. They're watching it head toward deflation. And they're doing things like, they're fooling the market. They're telling them, oh, we're going to be patient. Baloney. That's baloney. Right? Patient, my eye. they're going to continue to raise interest rates. Okay? The market, though, they just wanted to buy themselves some time, the Fed, so that they could buy a couple months. Basically, we're down to that. We're down to that kind of desperacy where the Fed's willing to buy a few months. Right? But eventually, in the very near future, it might be a month out or 2 months out or 6 months out, but the deflation's going to really get underway. We've seen the hints of it with the market falling off the way it's fell off. Eventually, the deflation's going to really get underway, and when it does, the central banks are going to have to do more than just talk, more than just say, okay, we're going to be patient. The market's not going to buy into that anymore. They're going to have to really get out and do some money creation, serious money creation. When they do that, the inflation's going to come. Now, deflation is totally different inflation is totally different than deflation. Now, remember how I said they can always kill deflation by dumping money on the situation? They cannot kill inflation that way. Once that money gets out there into the system, that they create voluminous amounts, and this time they're going to have to directly inject it into the system. They're not going to be able to backdoor it like they did before with quantitative easing. Quantitative easing, the money mostly went into the banking sector and into Wall Street. It didn't make its way into Main Street. This time they're going to have to inject it into Wall Street and Main Street. The money's going to go everywhere. Okay? It's going to be everywhere. And when that happens, you're going to see inflation. Then the inflation is going to start another self-feeding cycle. Exactly like deflation has a self-feeding, self-perpetuating cycle. Well, inflation does too. But the central bank can't do anything about inflation. Once inflation starts to run away on them, they've lost the game. At that point, all the people that have been hoarding money suddenly realize, hey, the central banks can make as much money as there are leaves on the trees, and they start to see prices go up tremendously. People that have their money invested in all of these assets that have real tangible value and are suddenly going up in value, they want to get out of their fiat. That's the situation we're headed toward. Okay? And they're going to want to get out of their fiat. And when they do, this is going to feed energy into the cryptocurrency market. But as this fiat currency inflates, okay, and as people lose confidence in it, they'll still stay with it for a long time as it's slowly becoming worthless. Like every day it might be losing 10% of its value. They'll still continue to use it. And there'll still be a remittance business. What you'll see happen is, more and more, you'll see Ripple take advantage, or XRP take advantage of that remittance business as the fiat currencies are losing value. So Ripple is going to grow during that period in time. But Ripple is pegged into the fiat system, and the reason why I say it's pegged into the fiat system, Ripple is integrating itself into an existing system, the fiat monetary system, as a money transfer service. Okay? But once we make the full transfer over, away from the fiat monetary system altogether, and we're in a global system of digital assets like Bitcoin and Litecoin and all these other, they are the money themselves. They're just like the fiat money. They'll work just like fiat does now. And you'll be able to send your Bitcoin to somebody else to buy a product across the Lightning Network in the future. At that point, once that full transition has taken place into the cryptographic monetary system, and the old fiat monetary system is completely dead, well, then, Bitcoin, you don't need to use Ripple to send Bitcoin across the Lightning Network. But you do need Ripple to send dollars, for instance, across the Ripple network. So Ripple is designing itself for this old fiat monetary system. And it'll do good during the transition. But once the transition's fully taken place, and we're in a completely went over into a blockchain type monetary system, then Ripple starts to become superfluous at that point in time, because you don't need to make money transfers if you've already got a coin like, say, Litecoin, because it is its own money transfer. Now, this is my viewpoint on it. I mean, some other people might have a different viewpoint, and maybe I'm getting it wrong. But this is what I think. I think that Ripple is tied into the present monetary system that we have now. It's integrating itself into that. Whereas Bitcoin, Litecoin, and all these other coins, they're a monetary system all to themselves. They do not rely upon the existing monetary system, where XRP and Ripple does. So basically, that's the way I see it. If I'm getting it wrong, you guys come in with the comments and let me know, you know. Thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next show. Bye-bye, guys.